All right, everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. So today we're going to be talking about my favorite baits to use for October. So now this is going to kind of cover everything. This is kind of going to cover if you're fishing the main lake. This is going to talk about if you're fishing creeks like I'm in right now, pockets, any of that good stuff, docks. It doesn't really matter wherever you're fishing. It kind of applies to all that. So either way, guys, we're working with Thunderhawk Lures now. So, you know, if you want to get your hands on Thunderhawk products, go to their website, thunderhawklures.com. Use CPosey20 at checkout. You get 20% off. It helps me out a whole lot. We're also working with Salty Captain. Check them out. You want to clean your stuff efficiently, quickly, with good products, affordable prices. Go to Salty Captain's website. At checkout, discount part, put Colton 15 and you'll get 15% off, and it helps me out a whole lot. All right, guys, so let's jump into this. Stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. All right, guys, so we're kind of going to start at the top of the water column and kind of work our way down, okay? Which is typically what I do anyways. Every time I get on the water, I'm kind of starting at the surface and working my way down because I love catching fish at close to the top of the water. It just makes it a lot easier and it's more efficient, in my opinion. Anyways, if the video helps you, make sure to like, subscribe. It helps me out a whole lot. I really appreciate it. All right, so the first bait we're going to talk about, this is one that I have grown to absolutely love, and I never knew that I needed it in my tackle box, and you probably won't know either until you try it. But this is called the Papa-Walker. This is by Thunderhawk, okay? And I'm not just saying this because I work with the company, but it's really, really hard to change my mind on hard baits, and that's one of the things that those guys strive to do, was to change my mind about, you know, the hard baits that I use, that I've used for years. This bait right here is amazing. It's like 4 or 5 different top waters all in one. It's got a fluke action. It's got a daggum, it's got a fluke action. It's got a dang walking action. It's got the pencil popper type style. It's got the hula popper with the walk action. It'll hop up out of the water. You can get it down in the water column and reel it, and it will kind of like swim. It's crazy. It does multiple things. I highly suggest you try this. This is a great product to get your hands on, just to trigger a lot of bites. But typically I'm going to be throwing this bait on the main lake when those fish start blowing up or shad's close to the surface, or I may get into a pocket where fish have pushed, you know, the shad up into, you know, a little pocket or something like that, and I need to stay close to the top of the water. I can throw this bait up in that pocket and trigger those bites also. You know, just anywhere there a top water bite may be. I've learned this bait typically, you know, when I'm throwing a walking bait, I kind of want that kind of slick, calm. With this bait, it kind of works either way. I've used it today. It's super windy out here today. I've got bites on it, you know, just throwing it in choppy water. I've also got bites on it in slack water, so I can't really suggest a time to throw it and a time not to throw it, unfortunately, because it would kind of narrow it down. But either way, I'm still playing with it in different conditions, but just about every condition I fished, you know, with it, and it's just outshined any other top water bait right now. I don't know if it's because it's got different action that they don't see a whole lot, or it's got multiple different actions and, you know, one retrieve or something. But either way, something about it just triggers a lot of bites. I'm on a threadfin shad fishery. This is a 6-inch bait. They shouldn't want it, but they want it for some reason. So it's just a good bait. Either way, one of the most important things is your equipment. So, you know, you want to be throwing like a moderate action rod, something that's got a lot of tip to it. That way, you know, when you get those hang-ups, it's got give. Those fish can move around with the bait without, you know, you having to worry about slinging that bait out of their mouth. You know, I suggest not necessarily going with a super fast gear ratio reel, but like a 7-1-1 is perfect. It's that perfect in between where you're not losing so much torque that you can't get those fish to the boat, but you know, you can catch up to that bait, because I've had a lot of fish blow up on this, hit it from the bottom, knock it up because they were so small, knock it up out of the water, and then, you know, I have to catch up with that line that they've knocked slack in. So, you know, 7-1-1 allows me to do that, but that's with any top water bait. That's just what I suggest running any top water bait with. Now, another bait that I like to run, this is kind of like that in between where it's not really like, it is a power fishing bait, but it's not like, it's kind of like that in between, like this hybrid power fishing / finesse bait, if that makes sense. This is a 1/4 ounce War Eagle bait. And all the baits will be linked down in the description. As always, just go down in the description. You'll see it linked at the very bottom. Pick whichever bait you're wanting to check out. It'll carry you straight to Tackle Warehouse. You can check it out, order it if you need it. But either way, this is just a War Eagle 1/4 ounce spinnerbait, okay? 1/4 ounce. I can't remember the color of it, but like I said, it'll be linked down in the description. But either way, this bait, with it being a 1/4 ounce, even though it's so windy, I can burn this bait, but it still stays right below the surface. So days like today, when those fish are kind of roaming around close to the top of the water, I can burn this bait and keep it close to the top of that water column, get fish to come in as I'm checking them out. Okay, those are smaller fish, I need to keep moving, then boom, you just bump into them and they just smoke it. I'm surprised this spinnerbait hasn't broke, because I've boat flipped a lot of fish that I shouldn't have boat flipped with it. But either way, it's just a great technique to use to cover a lot of water, get a lot of bites, and just have a good time while you're out there. You're going to catch small ones, you're going to catch big ones, you're just going to catch a lot of fish, and a lot of times in October that's really hard to do. So either way, as I always say, equipment's very important. 7-foot medium heavy, that's what I always run on my spinner baits. Now my reel, this is a Daiwa CG80. I don't even think Daiwa makes these anymore, but they're a 7.5 to 1 gear ratio. It is a higher speed gear ratio because I'm typically trying to move my spinnerbaits quickly, and I'm making my spinnerbaits act real erratic. If you haven't saw my video on how I make my moving baits real erratic, make them a little bit different, that way I trigger more strikes, check that video out. But either way, 7.5 to 1 seems perfect. I'm not losing so much that I can't get fish away from cover because I'm running 15-pound fluorocarbon. But you just play around with it, see what feels comfortable for you. But that's my setup for spinnerbaits. Now, another great one that you saw in a video a while back is one that I absolutely love to run this time of year, just because I can cover so much water. It's so efficient, it gets tons of bites. That's simply a Swimbait. Okay, so this is a 1/4 ounce squadron head. You can go with a 1/4 ounce, 3/8. It just depends on how the fish are feeling. If they want it super fast, I'm going to throw the 3/8. If they want it a little bit slower, I throw the 1/4 ounce. But this is 3.75 inch Rage swimmer, and I'm covering a lot of water with this bait, and you can fish any part of the water column that you want to with a Swimbait, which makes it super efficient. If those fish are suspended at 10 foot, they're not wanting to come up to like 9 or 8 to eat, then you can keep that bait in that range. Or if they're wanting to eat a foot below the surface, you can keep this bait in that range too. So multiple different colors. It's just a real good action. I love the Rage tail. I've run Kitex and everything else, but the Rage swimmer has always been my go-to personally. I just have a lot of confidence in it. So either way, I'm typically going to go to those bigger swim baits this time of year, simply because, like I said in my recent video, these fish get used to seeing those small 3-inch, 2-inch profiles. So upsizing the bait can a lot of times start triggering strikes again, because it's something they haven't saw in a while, since spring, since winter, something like that. So don't be afraid to upsize your baits if you're not getting bit on your smaller baits. Okay, upsize. You may want to upsize, drop weight. Maybe go with a bigger bait, smaller swim bait head, okay? Or maybe they want the bigger bait and they want the bigger head also, because you can move that bait a lot quicker to trigger a lot more reaction stripes. But either way, my setup, this is a 7'3" medium heavy Tyco rod by Thunderhawk Lures, $279 rod retail value. If you want to get 20% off on it, you see Posey 20 at checkout. I love these rods. I put them to the test, hanging up stuff and boat flipping stuff. I wasn't supposed to be with this rod, no issues at all. Very, very picky about my equipment, and this is a good $279 rod that fishes like a $400, $500, $600 rod. So either way, this is the loose speed spool Classic Pro. This is a great little cheap $60 reel that you can pick up just about anywhere. 7.5 to 1 gear ratio. I do want that higher speed for the same reasons as my spinnerbait. Okay, and 15-pound fluorocarbon, just so it's not too big, not too small. I can get those fish away from the cover. Now, this is a technique that I've really grown to love. I've really grown to love this technique, but and I know you're looking like a rattle trap, bro. You ain't never fished a rattle trap? Yeah, I've fished a rattle trap pretty much my whole life, but this one is actually silent. Okay, this is made by Thunderhawk. I don't know, I can't keep the hooks and stuff still, it's super sticky. But this is made by Thunderhawk Lures. There's no rattles in it, okay? And I know what you're thinking, you're using a rattle trap without rattles. Well, yeah, kinda. It's a lipless crankbait, but rattle trap made it famous. So you know, this time of year, and we're kind of going to expand on this later in the video, but this time of year, these fish get used to all these baits with rattles and all this different stuff in it, and they get used to hearing it. And a lot of times it turns these fish off to where they're just following it and they're not biting it. Using silent baits, silent crankbaits, silent anything, will a lot of times just trigger bites. I mean, it just triggers bites because it's something they don't see a whole lot. But the key to this bait right here, if you want to catch a lot of fish off this bait, and it is a fun bite, I mean, they load up on it. When they hit it, they hit it. You got to make it super erratic. So if you haven't saw my previous video where I talk about making your moving baits erratic, make sure to check that video out, because it is so important before you go and spend your money on this specific silent lipless crankbait. It's not one of those baits. I mean, you could probably throw it out there and just wind it in and catch fish, but you're typically probably not going to get bit a whole lot. But if you learn how to run this bait real erratic by popping that bait, by burning it, slowing it down, stuff like that, make that bait act differently, man, this is just such a fun bite. Plus, check this out. This is the biggest thing that sold me on this crankbait besides the action and stuff. So this swivel right here, it's got a 360 swivel. So what happens is this hook will completely rotate all the way around on both sides, the back, the bottom, all that stuff. It just keeps the fish pinned, so you just don't lose near as much fish. So, you know, if you're using the right rod like I am, this Tyco series rod, this 7-foot moderate action cranking rod, using rods like that, and then you've got that bait, you just don't lose any fish. I haven't had a single fish come off. You'll see in the video, I'll put a little clip up. You know, I had this fish I boat flipped in. He's just spinning around in circles. That hook's just spinning around with him. He's flopping, everything else, he can't get off. And the baits come straight out of the pack with EWG hooks. You just take the bait out of the pack, you tie it on, and it's ready to fish. That's pretty cool, and that's something we've been asking for years. Now, another great bait this time of year that I absolutely love to catch fish off of, I mean, really through the whole entire summer, all the way through fall, and that's a flutter spoon. A flutter spoon is just a great technique to catch suspended fish. They just hammer it. It's a fun bite. Once you get on it and you understand how it works, you don't want to not throw a flutter spoon. You will always have one tied on in your boat, just in case. You never know. And either way, you know, if you haven't saw my video on how I work flutter spoons and stuff, make sure to check that video out. It'll help you a whole lot, especially if you're new to flutter spoon fishing, because there is some things that you need to know when you're using a flutter spoon. You know, if you go out there and you do something completely different and you catch them, you're not doing anything wrong, okay? Don't let anybody tell you anything different. But one of the things that I do with the Strike King Sexy spoon, this is the 4-inch Strike King Sexy spoon, but what I typically do, I take that huge back hook off and I take and put a size 4 EWG hook on it. And this is just for hang up ratios and stuff like that. I'm fishing a lot of spotted bass fisheries. They have smaller mouths, so they have a hard time getting a hook that's, you know, the size of my hand in their mouth, okay? You'll typically snag fish more than anything, and that's something you don't want to do. So, you know, dropping that hook size down to a size 4, when they bite it, you will get it. Just reel into them. And I'm using, this is another big factor I want to talk to y'all about too. I've lost a lot of spoons in the past because of this. I was running 15-pound fluorocarbon. Nothing wrong with it. It's just, you know, you're making a bait move real erratically, and you're doing a lot on slackline. At 15 just tends to go pop. I've upsized to 20-pound test, and 20-pound fluorocarbon is just absolutely perfect, okay? It's not too big, it's not too small. The flutter spoon's still doing its job, and I don't really have any issues with just line breaks from slackline after catching a few fish because my line's a little skin up or something like that. So 20-pound, I highly suggest it. I've been running it for a while now, and I thoroughly enjoy it like that. You're gonna lose a little bit of castability, but you're typically not making a cast, you know, 100, or trying to make a cast 100 yards. You're making a cast in a general area, you know, 80 to 100 to 120 feet. You can do it pretty simple with 20-pound fluorocarbon. 7'4", heavy, extra fast rod, okay? That's what you want. 7'4", heavy, extra fast rod. It's got enough give in the tip when you go to pull into those fish. You're not going to set the hook like you know, you're setting the hook on a Texas rig or anything like that, but you are going to set the hook as far as like pulling into them like you're using a spinning rod or something, okay? And that just keeps your hookup ratio very, very consistent. Now, 7:1 to 1 gear ratio reel, 7:1 to 1, 7:5 to 1, somewhere in that speed range is perfect. You're not losing too much, and you're not giving away too much, and you can keep up with your line, because a lot of times when they hit this bait, especially on spotted bass fisheries, smallmouth smallmouth fisheries, when they hit that bait, they're going to come at it, and it's going to be like they are just mad at it. And they will take up a lot of line, knock a lot of slack in your line, and sometimes it's hard to catch up with them. So make sure you're using the right equipment. Now, another great bait that I love to use this time of year, especially for those fish that are out on the main lake and they're positioned maybe out on the points and they start getting schooled up close to the bottom, is a deep diving crankbait. Yes, a deep diving crankbait is an amazing bite once you get on it. It's so much fun. You'll be reeling that bait and ticking it off bottom, and then, you know, the fish just load up on it. They hammer it. But now I'm doing something a little different. I am running the Rapala DT20, okay? Rapala DT20, Rapala DT14, DT16, somewhere in that range. Just depends on what depth you're fishing. But what you're gonna do, you're gonna make a super long cast with that bait, and then you're gonna put your rod tip in the water, burn that bait straight to the bottom. Once it gets on bottom, you're gonna crawl that bait. I'm gonna keep a, you know, a strong cadence. It feels like it stops, quit reeling. It'll float that bait up, start reeling again, and then it'll go, okay? When you get that bite, it will just load up, okay? You'll just feel that rod just boom, just stop over. But one of the biggest things I can suggest, you know, when selecting a cranking rod, you definitely want to have the right one. This is a 7'6". This is a medium heavy, moderate fast action rod, and this is going to be perfect for deep cranking rods, okay? So if you're looking for, you know, a cranking rod, a deep cranking rod, go with that medium heavy 7'6". That way you get those long casts. You're taking up a lot of line whenever you're out there on that long cast when you go to set the hook. The moderate fast, that's gonna just give enough flexibility where those fish, when they do those big head shakes, it makes it really hard for them to throw the bait. You wanna go with a super slow gear ratio reel. This is the key, okay? I've had this reel since 2013. If you wanna save some money on a reel, make sure when that bait gets close to your boat, you pull your rod tip up to get that bait up, okay? Don't just keep burning, okay? Because you will burn out the gears in your reel. But this is an old school loose speed spool. Like I said, I've had this joker since 2013, and the only thing this reel's ever through is deep diving crankbaits. 6:4 to 1 gear ratio. If you can go slower, go slower. The slower the better. The more torque you're gonna have. It's gonna make it so much easier on your arms, your back, your legs, everything else. You start getting on a good cranking bite, you're gonna get a workout that day. You're gonna feel like you come home from the gym just exhausted. But either way, guys, I really appreciate y'all taking the time to stop by. If you're new here, once again, make sure to like, subscribe. It helps me out a whole lot. I got you covered when it comes to anything bass fishing. If you have any questions, always drop a comment down below. There's never a dumb question in bass fishing. We were all new at one time. And that's one of the things we do here. We're all learning from each other, and that's one of the cool things that I love about this channel. You know, another thing too, if you want to get merchandise, some cool merchandise, cool shirts, cool hats, anything like that, both $25 a piece, and that's shipped to your door. So, you know, that's one way to support my channel. Also, guys, I really appreciate it. If you want to become a member, also, I keep forgetting about this. I appreciate the new members. We've got new members now. I really appreciate you guys. It helps me out so much, monetarily wise. I mean, it helps me out so much. Gas, equipment, all that stuff. I spend a lot of time on the water trying to give you guys accurate information. But, you know, if you want to become a member, just hit that join button. $2 a month. That's it. Just $2 a month. You get my content early. Your comments are prioritized, and you can always go to my social media, send me a message, and I'll get back with you as soon as possible. Whatever questions you have with bass fishing. Either way, guys, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.